Hi, it's me, Sarang, and I'm here with the next episode of Ultimate Weapon Guys. Today we are going to talk about the gun, the myth, the legend, M4A1. You guys requested it, so here it is just for you. For today's video, I'm going to try something a little different. Rather than adding subtitles into my video through YouTube, I'm going to put them onto the video itself. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like this better? Any other ideas? Thank you so much. And now, let's get on to the guide. Oh, just a quick side note. I won't be mentioning the 9mm or SOCOM ammo types in this video because they completely change how the weapon works. They will each be getting their own guides in the future. First of all, the gun's effective range goes up to about 50 meters by default. It's a bit shorter than FAL and M13 while being almost identical to Killer 141 and Growl. It has a bit longer range than RAM7. Taking a look at the chart I've made here, we can see how the damage works. Base damage under 30 meters is 28, between 30 and 50 meters the damage is 23, and beyond 50 meters each bullet hits for 18. That goes for hitting the enemy anywhere but the head. There's no special boost to torso or upper torso shots with this weapon. For those headshots, under 30 meters you hit for 42, between 30 and 50 meters the damage drops to 33, and over 50 meters every bullet does 27 damage. As of the January 28th update, M4A1's headshot efficiency has been reduced. That means that you don't necessarily need headshots to do well with this gun. It will perform about the same no matter where you hit your target. The advantage to this is that anybody can use the gun and do alright. But the disadvantage is that it doesn't really reward skilled players that can get headshots consistently. It's a balanced gun and far from bad. It just doesn't have the potential to really push past good into amazing if the player using it is skilled enough. Against an enemy with 3 armor plates equipped, the TTK for M4A1 is 576 milliseconds. Mind you, that's without headshots. Some guns that have a faster TTK than M4A1, again without headshots, are FAL, AK-47, Odin, and RAM7. And some guns with lower TTK would be Killer 141, FR556, and SCAR. I have more specific details and a couple more weapons listed on the chart here. As you can see, TTK on M4A1 is faster than guns that have longer range or better potential, while it's slower than weapons that have more risk but higher reward. Going into recoil, the pattern goes up and to the right. The amount of recoil isn't too bad, but also not the best, which is to say that you can feel it, but it's not impossible to control. M4A1 has probably the most standard and average recoil in the game. The next section, I'm gonna go over some good attachments for Warzone. This is the stuff I recommend putting into your builds. Both of these barrels are good because they add range, which is really nice in Warzone. While there is a 10% difference on range between them, the actual amount is less than 5 meters. And there's also a bit of difference between them in recoil control, but it's also not too noticeable. Basically, the choice between these two comes down to whether you want more mobility or more range and recoil control. Now, these are attachments for aim down speed reduction. The Force-Tech CQS and Stippled Grip Tape are attachments that you should usually pick for ADS reduction. If you put too many attachments that add ADS penalties, you will also need either no stock or tech laser. No stock has a lot of various advantages, but also has a noticeable recoil penalty. When it's combined with the M16 Grenadier barrel, the recoil averages out and ends up being about what the gun has by default. The tech laser's downside is that your enemies can see it. I don't actually think that's a huge downside in Warzone because the map is giant and the colors of the world are so bright, it's a lot less noticeable than in regular multiplayer. For extended mags, you can go with either 50 or 60 rounds. There's a bit of movement speed difference, with the 50 round mag taking away a percent and the 60 round mag taking 2.5%. If you use other attachments that bring down your movement speed even more, you might want to consider going with the 50 round mag. It's a matter of deciding if the extra bullets are worth lowering your speed more. What will be more useful for your playstyle? As of right now, Commando Foregrip and Monolithic Suppressor are my favorite attachments on most guns for Warzone. In my personal opinion, sound suppression is really important, especially when you run it with the Ghost and Cold-Blooded perks. Some bad attachments that you should, in my opinion, avoid for Warzone. While they do have their advantages, I think they are much more suited for multiplayer. They reduce the range way too much. On top of that, while it looks like the commando barrel is the only one with a penalty to recoil control, the other barrels actually reduce it too. It's just not written on the in-game information. One thing you'll start to notice if you do experiments, what YouTubers that do, or just play a lot, is that the stats in-game aren't always accurate and can even be misleading sometimes. Just as an example, the FMJ says it gives you more damage, but it doesn't. All it does is add punch through. Anyways, continuing on, the lightweight suppressor. This lowers your range by 25% while giving you sound suppression. Just too much range loss in my opinion. Some example builds. This build is more for mid to long range. The mobility is not the best, but it has some fair recoil stabilization and control. A balanced build where everything is pretty average. If you need an optic, you can replace the stippled grip. This is the build I usually go for if I want to use M4 as my main gun. And this is a theoretically ideal build. It has good mobility, recoil control, and range. The problem is that it has less recoil control than the previous build and has no room for an optic. I use this build when I bring M4 as a secondary weapon. Now, I'm gonna go over a couple of good questions I got on the Reddit version of my guide. What do you think about Ranger Foregrip? So Scump used it over the Commando, and he's not the only pro. Both the presser and barrel are essential in Warzone, in my opinion, and they already have 2 or 3 frames penalty on aim down sight speed depends on the barrel you pick. Ranger Foregrip has 1 frame penalty on it. I personally hate it when the gun has more than 4 frames penalty on aim down sight speed. I've watched several videos of Scump playing Warzone, and I realized he usually run MP7 as his sidearm. He also always take a vehicle whenever he wants to move to somewhere else. With his playstyle, M4A1 doesn't really need to be mobile that much. Probably the accuracy and the stability are more important stats to him. So what I'm getting at is, just try out various builds and find out what works best with your playstyle. How viable are these guides on console, or better said, how viable are these guides for people who don't use mouse and keyboard on console? It's easier to control recoil with a mouse than a controller in my opinion, so it would be interesting to know if you take something else when playing with a controller. I've never actually played FPS games with a controller, so from personal experience, I'm not sure. From my experiences, however, some players on PC are terrible at recoil control, and some people on console are good. I think it's important to just find what works for you. Try things out. I give examples of builds But the reason I give stats on the parts, like the exact number of aim down sight speed you lose, or the exact percentage of movement speed gained or whatever, is because I want you to be able to use that information to make something that is custom fit to you. Definitely try my builds out to start and go from there. Is it too hard to stabilize your aim? Maybe sacrifice some mobility and get more aim stabilization. That kind of thing. I hope this answer helps. I'm sorry that I don't have more experience on console. They are very expensive in Korea. So that about finishes up this guide. I hope you enjoyed it. What other weapons would you like to see? And do you have any ideas for how I can improve my channel? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.